Fort Treeconderoga, May 28th, 1936. So still in the Great Depression time period. We have not traveled back in a bit. Fortunately, the last day of school was brief, just long enough to hand out report cards and clean out desks. After lunch, when Shady said I could use the old tree house out back for having friends over, he was off on 2 counts. First, I didn't have any friends. And second, that conglomeration of half-nailed boards could barely be called a tree house. Oh, it was in a tree all right, 30 feet up, with nothing to climb on except skinny branches and a rope ladder that looked to be holding on for dear life. Highlight that as an example of personification. A rope ladder that looked to be holding on for dear life. But I'd spent part of the afternoon helping tidy up around Shady's place, and now I wanted to be alone to look through the Lucky Bill cigar box I'd found under the floorboards. The treehouse looked to be as alone as I could get. So I stuffed the box in my satchel and climbed one creaky step at a time. The daylight coming through the floorboards was enough to make me wish I had a little fat on me so I wouldn't slide right through to the ground. Inside, I looked out a jagged hole that was pretending to be a window. I could see everything from up there. The Manifest Herald on one side of the hardware store. Go ahead and highlight these. The Manifest Herald on one side of the hardware store. Koski's Diner, and, I love this name, the Better Days Funeral Parlor on the other. Across the street were the bank, the post office, Dawkins Drug and Dime Store, Cooper's Barbershop, and the Curly Q Beauty Emporium. And those train tracks that Gideon was at the other end of. She could see it all. Then I saw Letty and Ruth Ann run into Dawkins Drug and Dime. I'd stood on the outside looking in on my way home from school. It had a soda fountain and jars of lemon drops and licorice whips and candy buttons. I must have been steaming up the window because a stern-looking woman, probably Mrs. Dawkins herself, had shooed me off. I wondered what treats those girls were getting. Maybe Gideon'd take me there when he came to get me. Again, I felt a little off balance, like I'd felt at the newspaper office the day before. Another foreshadow. But who wouldn't feel a little wobbly on a rickety treehouse so high above the ground? Enough goosenecking. What's goosenecking?
I guess looking around.
Yeah. Do you not know?
No.
Yeah, it's like looking around and like spying on people, kind of. Enough goosenecking. I had a look around the treehouse, figuring what I'd haul up with me the next time. Food, for one thing. I'd skipped lunch and the afternoon was heading from mid to late. There wasn't much left in the tree fort from previous dwellers, just an old hammer and a few rusted tin cans holding some even rustier nails. A couple of wood crates with the salt girl holding her umbrella painted on top.
Well, Morton's Salt.
Morton's Salt. So you've seen the little girl in the yellow rain jacket with the yellow boots holding the umbrella? Yeah.
And it's raining salt on her head.
Yeah. And a shabby plaque dangling sideways on one nail. Fort Treeconderoga, probably named after the famous fort from Revolutionary War days. Fort Ticonderoga, but they made a play on words and called it Treeconderoga. Anything else that might have been left behind had probably been weathered to bits and fallen through the cracks. No matter, I'd have this place whipped into shape lickety-split. First off, I picked out the straightest nail I could find and fixed the sign right up. Fixed the sign up right. Fort Treeconderoga was open for business. Kneeling in front of one of the crates like it was an altar, I opened the cigar box and let the contents tumble out. So she was really holding these contents in high regard. There was the map. Not a folded up road map, but a homemade one on faded paper with worn edges. It was a hand-drawn picture of places around town labeled with names. Up top, in a youthful hand, were the words, "The Home Front." Then there were the keepsakes, little things kept for the sake of something or someone, like a remembrance. A cork, a fish hook, a silver dollar, a fancy key, and a tiny wooden baby doll no bigger than a thimble, painted in bright colors, with a face and everything. To me, they were like treasures from a museum, things a person could study to learn about another time and the people who lived back then. Then there were the letters. I selected one and held the thin paper to my nose, wondering, hoping that I'd smell something of Gideon as a boy. Maybe smells like dog or wood or pond water. I felt like I was floating in my daddy's world of summer and hide and seek and fishing when I opened the paper and read the greeting. Dear Jinx, it said in an unfamiliar penmanship. My heart sank like a 5-gallon bucket full of disappointment. The cigar box and the letters didn't belong to Gideon. They belonged to somebody named Jinx. But I kept reading.
Here is the letter from one Ned Gillen on the Santa Fe Railway in the car next to the caboose. Do you know what a caboose is? A caboose is the very last car on a train, and in this day and age, you don't see many cabooses. They were always red, and they had a red light on the end, and they had a little tiny, not a chimney, but a little part of the caboose popped up above the caboose roof, so the conductor that worked the back of the train could climb a little ladder and look out all around and see what it looked like at the end of the train. See if there were any people trying to hop the train for a free ride. See if any of the cars were rattling. See if anything was falling out of the train. So that's the caboose. It's red, it's at the back, and it has a bright red light. So if any trains are coming up behind, they'll see it before they run into the train in front of them.
And when I was a kid, there was a conductor.
Yep.
On the caboose. There was a guy back there who that was his job, and my grandma had a train track behind her house, and I would always, when we were out for a walk or whatever and a train would go by, we would stop and wait to wave to the
And
conductor.
sometimes on a freight train, he was the only conductor. If he was working a passenger train, there may be a conductor in the front, and then he would be the conductor in the back.
Right.
Okay. So this dude, Ned Gillen, is sitting in the car next to the caboose. So that makes it the next to last car on the train.
The dogs are running apart.
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
Reading glasses and
Hold
all.
my spot.
Okay.
Dear Jinx, if my penmanship is a bit jiggly, it's because I'm writing to you from the train. I know you're sore at me from leaving, but when you're older, you'll understand. Besides, I won't be gone long. Check in on Pop for me. Now, the time of this letter is January 15th of 1918. So this is looking back in time, which is like the newspaper she's reading. What was happening in 1918?
World War I.
World War I. So check in for Pop for me, which meant his father. He might need a little help at the hardware store. In the meantime, somebody's got to keep watch on the home front. With a war going on, you can't be too careful about spies. You've heard some of the fellers talking about someone rattling around in the woods at all hours. Just last month, Stucky Cybulskis and Danny McIntyre said they were out night fishing when they heard a rattling that sent their dogs into a tizzy. Stucky says his dog Bumper can sniff out spies just as well as raccoons, but after sniffing around the woods, both dogs came back with nothing but a shank bone to show for their efforts. Well, that rattling spy, he's probably digging up all kinds of secret information to give to the Germans. How much secret information is a spy going to dig up in Manifest, Kansas? I mean, really, come on. Like what's the best time to catch night crawlers, or which boys are sneaking out at night to go skinny dipping? I don't think there's a whole lot of that going on in January. I wrote up a map for you so y'all will know what's important and what you're protecting. Plus, I left some mementos I know you've been eyeballing. My Liberty Head silver dollar, fishing lure, and skeleton key, but don't get any ideas. When I get back, which will probably be by the end of summer, they are to be returned to their rightful owner, and that's me. So remember, be on the alert. Keep your eyes and ears open. A rattler is watching. Ned.
So go back and highlight my Liberty Head silver dollar at the bottom of 36, my Liberty Head silver dollar, my fishing lure, and skeleton key.
All of which happen to be in the box.
So he's left, and Jinx is supposed to protect the home front, which means protect things at home, because they're At this point, like, you didn't know who might potentially be a spy, and, they were distrustful. And they heard someone rattling around in the woods, so they've decided that this must be a German spy. So.
But the dogs couldn't find a
The
spy.
dogs couldn't find them.
So it makes one wonder
who's rattling around in the
or
woods.
was it just the wind?
I don't know.
The shadow knows.
Oh, every time we read this, you say that, and they do not know what the shadow is.
Someday they will.
It was an old TV show that you used to watch.
Radio show, and I never watched it.
Show. Okay.
Nor did I
Remember
ever
how we
listen
talked
to
about radio shows in our PowerPoint? We talked about the Lone Ranger and Little Orphan Annie and Superman and how people would listen to them. So
this was eons before HBO Max and Prime and all those other apps that are on the TV now.
Yeah.
Formerly known as channels.
The yellowed paper felt brittle in my hands. Home front, spies, skinny dipping. I didn't know Ned or Jinx, but the words in the letter thrilled me. Their lives seemed full of adventure and mystery. A girl's voice jolted me from my thoughts. Abilene! Yoo-hoo! Abilene, you up there? Someone called. Shady said we'd find you in that treehouse, but from the looks of it, you're likely to fall out at any minute. This thing must be in real bad shape.
Yeah.
I peeked out of the treehouse, then pulled my head back quick. It was Letty and Ruth Ann. I'd wanted them to come. I should have been glad they did, but I was still filled with disappointment about the letters not being to Gideon and curiosity about Ned and Jinx and the spy known as the Rattler. I can't work on that assignment just now, I hollered back without looking out. Assignment? It's the last day of school, for crying out loud, Letty said. The assignment can wait. After all, everyone's on vacation.
It's the best day of the year next to the 4th of July.
That's right. We just saw Sister Redempta wearing her wading habit down at the river, Ruth Ann yelled.
Sister Redempta's at the river.
I poked my head out. You did? No, it was a joke. But I bet that'd get you down from the treehouse in a hurry, Letty laughed. I pulled my head back in, feeling a little foolish. Even if Sister Redempta had a wading habit, there probably was no water in the riverbed. Because again,
it's hot. It's
Dust
dry.
Bowl.
It's Dust Bowl. It's 1936, which happens to be the Great Depression.
Oh my gosh. I'm busy right now. Okay, I guess we'll come up. You go first, Soletta. After you, Ruth Ann. I was sure they were just teasing me again until I heard the creak and pull of the rope ladder. I tried to fold them out before they pulled themselves up, but they were fast climbers. What are you doing up here? Ruth Ann poked her head up first and scrambled onto the platform. I slipped the map and keepsakes back into the Lucky Bill box. Nothing much. What are y'all doing up here? I don't really need help with that assignment. Nope, I'll be long gone before Sister Redempta can lasso me with that rope around her waist. Besides, y'all probably have better things to do, like run off to the Five and Dime or something. I didn't know why I was being so snippy. I guessed it was because Gideon had taught me not to be anybody's charity case. Well, as a matter of fact, that's where we just came from, Letty said, reaching up for Ruth Ann's hand. With her short curly hair, she looked like the little salt girl on the crates, and she carried a red bandana knapsack on her back. We brought you something. She opened the pack and pulled out 3 lovely sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, 3 apples, and my goodness, 3 ice-cold Coca-Colas.
In bottles.
At the same time, Ruth Ann saw me clutching the letters. What are you hiding? She snatched them out of my hand. Give them back, I said. Are these from your boyfriend? My pride welled up like a blister ready to pop. Ooh, that's a great simile. My pride welled up like a blister ready to pop. I grabbed the letters. I know why you're here. Y'all are the ones hoping to get noticed by the teacher or your parents for doing a good deed to the new girl. Well, I don't need no corpus works of mercy, I said, slipping into my new girl in town way of talking. So y'all can just find someone else to get your extra credit from this summer. Seeing the looks on their faces, I almost busted out crying from being so mean. They looked at each other as if silently agreeing which one would speak to me. That's just fine, it was Ruth Ann. But I'd like to point out that they are corporal works of mercy. You know, doing things like clothe the naked and feed the hungry, and we weren't doing them in the first place. But I think even Sister Redempta would agree there isn't one among them that says anything about setting in a treehouse with a pig head. Isn't that right, Letty? Kind of put her in her place.
I guess she did.
That's right, Letty said, quietly putting the food and drinks back into the bandana. Nor one about running all over town collecting empty pop bottles for trading in to bring Coca-Colas to the ungrateful.
Don't be a pighead.
So how'd they get the Coca-Colas? They went and collected pop bottles, traded them in, and got new ones. We came up here to pay a visit and to get acquainted, but it looks like you've got your own self to keep you company. Or y'all self, or whatever it is you keep saying. Come on, Letty, let's go. They both stood. I wasn't sure what to say, but knew it had better be something good and quick. You mean y'all don't say y'all? They paused. Then Ruth Ann answered, sounding kind of disgusted. No, we don't say y'all. That's 2 words. You, all. You might as well get that straight right now. I cleared some dust off the floor with my foot. Anything else I need to know? For while I'm here, that is. Letty and Ruth Ann looked at each other again, probably deciding if they could tolerate me another minute. They must have figured they could because they sat back down and opened their parcel of sandwiches. Well, Letty said while Ruth Ann popped the bottle tops off with the hammer claw, there's a river that when it's in Arkansas, you can say it like that, the Arkansas River.
We have that here, by the way.
The one where, like the gathering place.
Correct.
But once that river hits Kansas, it's called the Arkansas River.
And that is true.
That
100%
is
true. It comes out of Colorado. It's the Arkansas River. It hits the Kansas border in western Kansas, travels all the way to Wichita, turns south, goes through Arkansas City, Kansas, crosses the Oklahoma border. Boom, it's the Arkansas River. Goes out of Tulsa, down to Fort Smith. It's in Arkansas. Spills itself into the Mississippi River, then it's the Mississippi River.
But for that section, when it's in Kansas, they won't call it the Arkansas River. They call it the Arkansas River.
And you know why? Because they say there's no W in Arkansas.
If you think about it, Arkansas sounds like it should have a W at the end, like saw, S-A-W. But Arkansas is spelled Arkansas.
Correct.
So it's interesting.
And I got something else to tell you. In southeastern Kansas, around this town manifested, but we're really there, they'd probably say y'all a little bit.
Yeah, they probably would. And there's a woman up the way who sits on her porch and stares. Don't look her in the eye or you'll turn to stone, Letty said, as if that was on the same level of importance as how to pronounce Arkansas. And you might want to work on your grammar, Ruth Ann added with a mouthful of egg sandwich. It doesn't bother any of us. Fact is, during the summer, we all talk however we want. But come fall, Sister Redempta's kind of picky when it comes to don't need knows and might couldas. And as for that lasso around her waist, it's not a lasso. Okay, each one of you have seen this. It's a rosary. And it's for praying. So sisters used to wear large rosaries around their waist, and they would use them for praying. So she thought it was a rope, or a lasso, but it's a rosary, and it's for praying on. I could tell it would take a while to learn the lay of the land, but that was okay. Those girls were real friendly. The Coca-Cola was going down good, and come fall, I would be long gone, I told myself, pushing aside the wobbly feeling I'd been having off and on. So every time she thinks about that, she gets a wobbly feeling. I opened the cigar box. You ever seen a spy map? I asked.
Bum, bum, bum.